evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby, accompanied by my co-host, Robert Pepino. And tonight we have with us Samuel Hofman, the Montana Skywatcher. We are going to update you on the latest happenings with the Innbound planet. All righty then. So how is everybody out there in radio land tonight?
Well, my dear, I am doing okay. I'm a little tired and just dealing, as you know, a lot here at the house with my mother. It's it's a slow process of this whole stem cell treatment, and it's just it is a progress. 2 steps forward, one step back. So it is what it is. But the doctors told me about this, so I expected this, but it is.
Maybe we should do a show about stem cell surgery to educate people a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'd be more than happy to do that. It is just, it's so tough to watch someone you love go through this and go through those bouts of daily pain. And, in one moment you're thinking, oh, man, she's getting better. And the next moment you're watching her going, did anything happen at all? It is brutal. It is brutal.
Well, we will keep her in our prayers, and everybody just know that Robert's mother had the stem cell surgery, and, any positive energy and prayers you can send his way is greatly appreciated. Okay,
yes,
so Samuel.
Yes.
Welcome
I was listening.
Good to have you back.
Well, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here, and aloha from tropical Montana. And that's always the sight joke because you never know where our climate is today. And it's also been an old tourist campaign back from the 80s years ago. So it always stuck. It's always been the site logo. Anyway, how you guys doing? Got a whole bunch of really cool stuff that's been happening overhead, and the sightings are way, way up. And I'm still in absolute awe that the 3/4 or the other rest of the percentage of the planet is not watching these passing planets on a daily basis and going, and enjoying this magnificent show that keeps me in awe and surprises me still every week. Other than that, we're up here in Montana with a nice sunny day, and it was beautiful and clear, and I didn't hardly see a planet anywhere because it's pretty much away week, and everything's over on the East Coast right now anyway, so it's all happening before my daylight started today. And, of course, the transition of the passings of the planets is changing at ever faster and faster and shorter durations recently. It's been kind of really cool. And do you guys have any questions or anything you wish to discuss?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about this planetary alignment and how it has affected our planet already. I know the first day or the first few hours of the alignment, there was a 6.4 earthquake in Alaska. I think there were 2 major earthquakes. So
right.
I want to get your take on that. What do you think? What's going on?
Well, we've noted that Attu's moon is horrendously close, and it's so close to the horizon. I mean, we've got video documentation that came in this morning of an electrical storm, and out of the side of it pops Attu's moon and the object cluster group, which is crossing in front of Attu's moon, literally at horizon, and they're discharging on each other and on the Earth and everything else. Just this monster storm, and it's this massive repeated lightning storm, and it's alone by itself, and we've had reports of that all week. And then, of course, there's the crossing of Nepenthe across the East Coast in the dip, and that's been all this freak weather from Iowa and Kansas, Nebraska, Illinois, and all that's been these major catastrophes that are that we're barely seeing anything on the news. The planetary push over to this side of the solar system, I believe, is just that more of everything is is on the swing, as all these planets are right in the same spot on this side of the sun. And then I believe that Hercubus, or Immeru, depending on what you wish to call it, which is a massive, massive gas giant electron cluster / whatever that holds the two stars, is also on the other side of the solar system. And I believe that's filling up that major part of the solar system, because in a lot of our footage over the last 3 to 6 months, we've seen a change in the location of Hercubus, and some of the back discharging and some of the minor illumination that's been visible according to some of the information that we've been able to wean out of NASA, because NASA scrubs the crap out of everything before it's ever released, and they change pictures. So anyway.
Is that why we're seeing like these flash storms that are just popping up? Like, for instance, the one that just popped up in Missouri, and that duck boat ended up sinking,
right,
and all the people died.
Right, these excruciating winds that they're downgrading as well, because they're literally hurricane force, which is 75 mile an hour is the bottom of the hurricane scale, and these winds are coming in, and it's just really fast, and there's this big push. And if you look on any of the radar screens and everything, and some of the, like windy.com, or if you look at the, there's just so many. So some of these sites, there's weird disturbances of this major push of air, and it's this rolling, what they refer to now as the shelf cloud, which of course was specially named only after the startup of the passing of the planets. And so they're coming up with all these names that just sort of, kind of hint at the reality and yet mislead, because they give you a little tidbit so that you can buy it, and then they hand you, a bucket of sand and say, this is the beach, and that's the rest, and then people buy into that because they don't usually think things through. They go, oh, okay, NASA says it's this, and then they quit. And so, there's a lot of deception. It's chuck and jive, and we know that they show one card while they're switching the other cards behind their back. But anyway, we've seen
I have not heard that one thing on the news or the weather on local channels about this planetary alignment. I haven't heard one thing about it.
No, of course not. You probably won't. They're busy talking about the extra moons that they've discovered on around Jupiter. And it being a gas giant, it has numerous. This world we're up to 79 now, and that's the neutron count. So yeah, it's they'll release information when they don't want you looking over here. They'll have you look over here instead, and it's the old chuck and jive, and they do a lot of that, and that way they get credit for their discoveries, but they don't have to tell you where or when. And then I'm still chuckling over that bee in the ISS live cam, where it's obviously a film studio and somebody let a bee in, with big screen TV and all of that. But I haven't had too many people argue with it yet, but I've commented on it a few times and I haven't had any feedback at all. But not to sit here and play conspiracy theorist or anything, I'll talk about what we have seen. We've seen some really serious electrical discharge storms coming in. And people filmed it all over the world, especially Mexico and stuff. They were getting some really good shots. And, of course, what's coming in the middle regions of the planet, they get some really, really good shots compared to those of us who are on either South Africa or Montana, for instance. We see it a slightly different angle off the side of this ball, so our view out is slightly different as well, which makes things a little confusing. But the reports have been coming in so strongly about the object cluster group being at horizon level, and Attu's moon is huge and had, for about the last week and a half, has been cutting back across the sun towards the right. Now, a year ago or so, it was over to the far southern right-hand side, and then it crossed in at the turn of the year, where it went in front of the sun again, and then all the way into the left-hand field of the sun for a matter of about a month and a half, and it's now crossed again, and it's what's causing a lot of this really strange-looking skies with the Milky presence and this really funky blue, twisted, very sharp, bright light that you can't really see the sun, and the upper right-hand corner of the sun has been cut off in literally all shots for the last month, because Nibiru is coming in and blocking off over the overall view. Saturn is in front of Nibiru, and then Nepesi's been coming over the top and then blocking over the top of us, in a direct over-the-top-of-planet existence at sunset, where it's literally been cutting off the top of the sun and the sunlight as well. And and then Attu and Attu's moon has been playing a strong, significant role as well, because they're doing this dance over the top of us. And I got some pictures today from Venice, Italy, where it's just these momentous clouds that are just gigantic with this intense, bright white illumination behind it. And it's just way up off it's a straight-up shot. And it's the most phenomenal thing in the world. And we know what is white and very luminescent right now, and we know that's Attu's moon. And so it's just been this phenomenal show that just gets better and better with every passing day. And so it also leads me to say that, this is the same as the cycle of 2015. It's the same as the cycle of 2016. It's the same as 2017. And here we go again, except it's been moving down southerly on these close passes. So, because it was before in Canada and over Montana, and now it's actually hitting the middle United States this year. And some really phenomenal shots, some horrendous storms, which we're seeing all over, and this is where this hail and all this freak rain, and they may not be as close as we assume, but they do affect the overall high pressure and low pressure eddies and troughs that end up stabilizing and creating this vindictive weather that causes all of these crazy unknown storms. Now, the West is just hotter than hell. The Southwest is hotter than hell this week. Texas is having a heat wave. We're having a rainstorm from middle up here in Badbaby's area up there, and you guys have got a bunch of rain coming in, being pulled down, and then it's being pulled out of the Gulf of Mexico and then off the Atlantic coast and everything, because there's a major rotational high off the coast in the mid-Atlantic, keeping everything going weird, which is also cutting lower on the amount of hurricanes we could be having, because it's driving those storms way south. But anyway, all of this weather
we were really glad to see the rain, because that was the first rain we actually had this month, and everything here is burnt. Our grass is burnt. Our trees are burning.
Well, I think that because I think the second sun is much closer to us than it was. I think it was thread linked, but at a larger distance. Even the moon seems in an odd, tiny scenario. So all these planets are being pulled and pushed, and everybody's jostling for place. And we're all on one side of the solar system, so this should be really interesting. And there's a coming eclipse. Now, when they tell us it's a lunar eclipse or whatever eclipse, don't believe it. Investigate for yourself. Find out what kind of a body goes in front of this eclipse, because a lot of time it's a colored one, or it's way bigger than it should be, and they're just lying through their teeth. And I've tried to prove that to a lot of people on Montana Skywatch 1 and 2 on Facebook, but most people are so instantly caught up in the belief of what NASA says that it's a lunar eclipse. Oh, that's the moon that went in front and did that. And we've proven numerous times over it was not. And, so you got to check this information, because they'll lead you one way and then show you something else.
Samuel, let me ask you about the what's going on in the Teton National Park with the cracks that are happening over there, and looks like the NOAA's keeping a very close eye on what's happening over there.
Well, there's a lot of expansion going on with the proximity of Attu's moon. We've got and this thing's really big, and it's pulling on everything. And then with each of these paths, you've got an expansion, like little magnets pulling at each other. So I'm sure we'll see the magma, which is probably metal-based, being pulled up, and then when it lets go or passes by, that magnetic polarity pressure is probably lowered. I was just going to real fast zoom to Yellowstone if I can find it and have a look at her today, because I did not look at Yellowstone today. But the geysers are way, way bigger than I've ever seen them. We, of course, are watching huge amounts of lava flowing out of Hawaii. I mean, in this 35-mile-an-hour river.
Nonstop. That's pretty much nonstop what's going on over there. It looks like a new island's being created as well.
Oh, yeah, that's just a little, those happen.
Yeah.
That's where all of that is just adding on to the big island overall. It's got a lot of ways to go down underwater, too. After a certain distance off the Hawaiian island, it drops. It's deep.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
not, don't fall into what the news media is throwing out. It's a new island. Yeah, okay, it's 300 feet across. Yeah, that'll be buried before you know it. Okay, Yellowstone. I finally found it. I had to scroll through so many. Yeah, Yellowstone is humming like crazy today. She's got a harmonic P wave, and every time I see borehole B206, I go, what idiot drills a borehole in a supervolcano?
Right.
That's just, that's like a kid with a pin and wanting to save his balloon. Excuse me? Yeah, we've got a P wave scenario going through Yellowstone right now as we speak. It's just harmonically humming. And it's a bunch of miners. No, you can't really take the seismic charts anymore. Go ahead.
Gotcha. So, but about the fractures that are taking place over there, is that basically the expansion or the compression of the equator and putting pressure on the tectonic equator to compress the planet?
Well, we know that
the fracturing, or
we know that train car effect is real. Now, if we've had a 6-point earthquake up in Alaska, which we know we had a couple of those, then that train car is going to bump into the next train car, and that train car is going to bump into the next train car, and it goes down a layer of vibrational effects. And anything above a 6.2 or 6.3 rings through the entire Earth. Sometimes it goes around 5 times, and we'll hear it all day long in a harmonic resonance doubling, but lesser each time as it passes, and that'll show up on the seismic charts as well. I was trying to find a global seismic charts here. I'll have a look at that. Now, there's been an awful lot of, like Grenada is blacked out right now. There's a vibration. Jamaica had a biggie. Now, all of the charts worldwide are turned down because we can see that the flow of the height is weight, and now Oregon is just vibrational and bouncing. And they've had some biggies, but they're not reporting those biggies because apparently they've relisted them as something else because they're off the page, from top to bottom of the page. And so those don't get reported anymore. I think everything's bumping each other. And I think we've heated up so much, which is the liquidity, the viscosity level of the lava coming out of Hawaii would indicate that maybe we have tectonic plate floating and all of these little like tied up boats that are bumping into each other now instead of train cars. And
right. Samuel, let's talk about the inner core for a minute. From all the information I've been gathering from, people, researchers just like yourself, in the know, they're talking about the inner core slowing because, it turns in opposite direction of our rotation, right? Creates the magnetic field. They're saying that the inner core is slowing at this moment due to the compression that's taking place. Of course, the sun's gone, sunspot free, from what everybody's saying. So we're in this solar minimum. But
yet the bottom of our southern regions are highly illuminated.
Right. Well, the whole sun's illuminated, but I understand what you're saying.
I mean, in ionized cloud particles from magnetic.
Right. What I'm trying to get to the fact is that the decrease in the magnetic, our magnetic shield has shrunk so significantly now within the last 20 years, but literally within the last 5 years. It is down to a minimum. We've got UVC hitting the ground now. That's been unheard of. There's a lot of people out there who have been following this. UVC,
that's taking into account under a normal situation, but we're not in normal.
Right. Well, we're not in a normal situation, but what I'm saying, UVC has never hit the ground. But here's the bottom line. We've got melting garbage cans, melting street lights, street poles, whatever, specifically being punched through the ozone, I guess, so to say, because our magnetosphere is basically depleted so much. The inner core slowed down. This is a direct reaction from our own sun, which I believe
is depleted on any of the graphing. What I see is a greater intensity of that which is hitting us, and they're not telling us.
Okay,
that.
Well, I understand. Tit for tat. I got you. I just kind of said it the other way around.
Well, we in order for us to now, granted, because we're looking at the stall speed and the rotational speed has to do with dynamo effect and magnetosphere columnization. You know how strong the weak wave middle properties are versus the poles, or of course the strong wave properties of magnetosphere. And I've been looking. I looked at them, as a matter of fact, the magnetosphere pictures this morning. And we've had other bodies in close proximity, which is also weakening the overall because it too causes an aberrant band in the overall placement of the weak wave versus the strong wave standard model, for instance. If we have an object in our armpit, it's like, you know, a big chestnut under our saddle, so to speak, and so our Earth isn't going to react properly. So yeah, I imagine there might be more coming in. And yes, I did see the cars that were all melted all over in the last month. But I think go ahead.
I was just simply trying to finish the point of that. As our magnetosphere is weakening and the inner core is slowing, right? Are we looking at a physical, or well, I wouldn't say physical. I'm just going to say a magnetic pole shift. Because I think this is what it's all leading up to at this point.
Well, we know that we're already tipped,
Samuel.
Yeah, we know that we're tipped, so that we know that there's movement, and we know that it's been wobbling back and forth because that's been proven over and over for the last 7 years.
Right, exactly.
And we know that the sun originally when the sun first breaks dawn's light, we know it's in the far northeast. Instead of the east like it should be.
Right, and it's far, far north when it sunsets. I've said this many times and said on other people's shows. I said, look, you take a look at the sun. We got a 2 to 5 degree shift, which is the wobble, which is, accentuated itself without a
And
question.
we are on a ball instead of on a cube or a flat plane, so therefore our roll is going to be...
Right, no flat earth here, Samuel.
Going to be semi-contrary to what our imagination is going to say. And we're experiencing weather of other regions which is different than should be our own. Everybody's trees are frying, but I believe that has to do with the second sun as well, and proximity of the second sun, and duration of the amount. And when the second sun got here, I was thinking about this earlier today. I remember how everybody was freaking out briefly over how intensely bright the light was, and how we could all see the weird little circles in our car window tinting that no one had ever seen before. And that was the first onset because the second sun was, of course, not blocked by our sun, which it is currently generically. Our sun blocks out a good portion of what the second sun puts out as well.
Right. But my question is, what do you think the effects are? More of the same of what we're experiencing?
We're going to get worse. I think we're going to fry our butts off. I think we're going to be. I think we're going to be hotter. I think we're going to be stormier. I think we're going to be more volatile. I think that we're going to go through this until the passing of the overall planets, and then when they let us go magnetically, then we're going to look at a whole new set of dice and rules and everything and see what happens. We may roll, like the old Scotty games when the magnet is pulled and left away. I can't really call what's going to happen, but I do know that it is drastically changing. And it's on a regular basis.
Right, and I guess what I was trying to lead up to is that if we go back in history, ancient history, we can see that there have been many civilizations which all happen to be on coastlines, which are all underwater now. So we know that land masses sink, land masses rise. Is this what we should expect?
Well, did you hear last week
in
Malaysia, the tides, and in Indonesia, the tides had run out literally miles where they couldn't even see the water anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that happened again, which is what led me to start searching for Attu's moon again, and then I started looking at different pictures at different times of the day because the cycle of their passing, they were slower in their passing than they are now. They're quicker. And I think they're a little more violent on the weather effects, and would be also seismologic as well. the effects of these passing planets, I think, is pulling at the lava fields as well, like pulling them more to the surface, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're going to see an increase, especially since we don't know really how close is close with these guys, because we're back where we were in 2015 and 16 and 17, where they're going to do their thing, and then the height of that starts in the early spring, which we've already seen, and so we're in midsummer, and then the finish of this is going to be August, September. So August, September of these planetary passings is the magnitude and the height of the 180-day cycle and all of that, where I think we're going to see some more drastic effects that are going to even be worse. And I'm amazed we haven't been pasted by these asteroids, because I've got my site running right now, and I've been watching it all day, and there is way more meteor activity than there has ever been.
Well, funny enough that you mentioned that, Samuel, because the last show we did, we were talking with Michael Horn, and I had asked him about Apophis and the calculations of pi, which are incorrect by the so-called lettered agencies, but there's a scientist who said the calculations were wrong. He's tried to put that information out to say, hey, gang, by the way, this Apophis asteroid 2028 is going to hit. It's not going to be a near miss. It is going to hit, and this is all related to the Billy Meyer contacts with the Palladians or Plejorans. And his calculations are right. So, and I had said this many, many, many years ago, probably going back 10 years ago, Samuel. I said we're going to get hit by a rock long before Planet X or Nibiru or its binary system ever can get close enough to do any severe damage. It's the asteroids that are going to do the worst damage.
Well,
what do you say?
We've had numerous sightings, of course, of the skull. And it's not a general topic we talk about openly, because I don't want to cause a lot of freak out and religious folks to really freak out and start diving into Revelations even more. Now, granted, this can be a source of information, but it can also be quite deceptive, because you can fill in whatever parable because according to your anyway. You can add a metaphor from anywhere, or a simile. Point being is that we have seen these asteroids, and they are, again, very, very at close horizontal level, meaning they're going to cross, and we saw a couple of months ago it go right through our atmosphere between us and the moon, and we're talking so close that it was just unbelievable. And I'm amazed, and I actually expect it any day now. I really do, and I hate to talk about things in that manner, but I think people, if you're planning on adding a little to your pantry right now, would be a good time. But then it's always a good time to add to your pantry, because we don't know. And I mean, look at Panama not Panama, excuse me. Look at Puerto Rico. They're still waiting for generators to go back online, because they don't have enough power generators, and they haven't even been made. And Houston is still waiting for some. And all that with each of these passing storms and each of these passing flooding incidents, like what's going to happen tomorrow in the middle South, from Kentucky on tonight, is going to get just butchered, and we're going to barely see that information on TV.
And today we had massive tornadoes in Iowa, just out of the blue, bam.
Right.
And and that's what I was saying about the weather patterns being so erratic. That's what you were saying, and I've repeated exactly what you have said many times over, that the jet stream has shifted so drastically that it again when we went into that extreme wobble, Samuel, that it shifted the jet pattern of our atmosphere, but also changed the magnetic the physical magnetic north and south pole, which has thrown all the animal and fish life off.
You have to take into account these other planets too, because those are big magnets. They're all the positively charged.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah,
and they envelop even Saru back in 2013ish when Saru enveloped Earth within its magnetosphere, and the magnetosphere went whompus crazy, and nobody else knew what it was. I just sat here and chuckled, because I tried to explain it to a few people, and they thought I'd lost my mind. And these planets are so much bigger than we are. When they roll up next to us, we tip to the side. We just tip right over and go, oh, excuse me, like a pool ball on the table, but we tip over. And then we're sort of pushed out of their way by their electrical field as well as our electrical field. And when they're really in close pass, that's when we see the transition between ionization and water and the electrical transfer between the two planets. And the larger one steals ions from the smaller one. And that's when you have all this violent wind. And then when the another one, if it's a smaller one and then it's got enough charge, then it repels. And we're seeing all of that with the object cluster group and all of the debris field of what's following behind Uri and Atu and Nepesity. And all of that stuff is around us right now. We are in the Oort cloud of Saru, Uri, and Atu. And Nepesity follows behind that and has its own little group of spinning stuff that follows underneath its southern region.
But let me ask you, you used the phrase Oort cloud now. Are you saying that it pulled the Oort cloud in with it, or it has its own Oort cloud?
It has its own Oort cloud, part of which is what I believe is the skull. And they say that the skull comes by every 3 years, and that's not true because it's in the group now, unless it was captured and they haven't reported that. And perhaps that report was old enough that, because they were talking about 3 years, and that might have been a few years ago that they were saying that. But we've seen the skull repeatedly. We see the OCG every day, the object cluster group, the asteroid pack, whatever. We see it every day in 95% of the pictures, every day. And we have for years. And it's always on, and currently it's that long streeping stuff across the sky as Atu, and Atu's moon is pulling away and rounding over the top of us, and Nepesity comes in, followed before and after. It's kind of a really screwy dance they're doing. It's really complicated. But these asteroids are underneath these planets, and these planets are so closely passing, it's just spooky as all hell. And then they got that tiny space between us, and that's all of these asteroids, and we're seeing it. I'm watching the live meteor echoes feed right now, and we're seeing stuff that's bigger than we've ever seen it before. And we watched a higher tone that existed above what they were getting the readings on yesterday. And to me, I sat there and said, well, what is that entire planet base that's a full nonstop tone? I mean, this thing was a line across the page instead of a tone that fluctuated.
Wow. That's actually huge. Well, yeah. I know what you're talking about. That's huge.
We have a guest in the chat that feels that they feel that Mount Hood, Rainier, Shasta, Mount St. Helens, and McKinley will become very active soon, and they'd like to get your take on that.
Well, that too is part of the Hopi prophecy, is where the seven sisters speak. And I've been waiting for, and that's what I talk to people when they ask me about Yellowstone. I actually usually refer them to the Washington State and Oregon State volcanoes instead, because it's the unblown ones and the ones that have blown within the last recent memory that we have to worry about. Yellowstone is highly vented, and yes, the whole area may change and it may burp up a volcano, but I don't think it's going to blow up so large that it wipes out the East Coast as well. One of those. I don't think we'd have to worry about that. But yeah, I believe the Seven Sisters are very active. I was looking at Oregon just a few minutes ago, and the seismic charts on Oregon they're in full P wave, and we're talking a very high rifted P wave, and followed by, from top to bottom across the page, seismograph reports of a major drawn-out quake, because the width between the stroke also makes a difference. And it says rise to the top of the page, and then it falls to the lower part of the page, meaning it's a harmonic, that they're not even reporting. And those are those big ones that we know are happening, but no one's talking about on the admitted sites, the USGS, etc. And I've seen a lot of those in the last few months where they were just mega, and you were looking in the 7 and the 8s and 10s, and they're just not being reported. And, of course, we know that the charts are being turned down, so what are they really? Because the charts they're barely anything that's going up, 2 or 3 degrees anymore, and they used to be, when you saw a 4-pointer, it went up, an inch or 2 up the page. And now they're reporting 4-pointers, and it's just, this looks like a cork out of a bottle. And so we know they're skimming off the top and off the bottom.
Let me ask you, Samuel, about Flagreri volcano, which is a supervolcano right just south of Naples. Now, the Palladians, Plejorans, have talked about that going off. Now, they said that could be a very strong possibility of that happening, but for sure, in their future viewing, they said that, Vesuvius is going to go. If that goes, also the Canary Islands, I don't remember the exact name of the volcano right now, but Cumbre Viejo, I think that's it. If that goes, that will go into the ocean, right. Of course, causing a massive
East Coast tsunami, yeah.
That's correct. Are you, through your calculations and understanding of everything that's going on, you see that as a very extreme possibility happening?
Oh, absolutely. I've watched it
every time soon here.
Well, I really truly expected serious trouble by 2013, and since then I've kind of cropped my tongue on trying to guess when, because I'm amazed we're sitting here in 2018 and we haven't seen worse yet, and I've still, granted my roof got partially torn off, but I've still got a roof over my head where many people don't, and we're going to see a lot more of that tonight, and I feel really bad, and let's pray for them, but there's going to, at some point, how long are they here for? How many years is this going to keep happening? And each pole and all these other volcanoes, and then we're looking at more ash in our atmosphere, and then are we going to tip into ice age, or are we going to go into a huge tropical period? It's really hard to judge, but I foresee that all of this stuff is excruciatingly possible, and we've got 10, 15 things stacked up against us, and any one or two of them combined are going to be finishing us. So. And this is why I do what I do and try to warn people that they really need to, move away from the coastlines, plan ahead. These jobs and kids' college educations are not as necessarily important as trying to live through the world of the crazy that we've got going around on us. And I also have to say that Attu's moon is affecting people. It is affecting the tides on the planet. It is affecting the tide in your brain. The water in your brain is being affected by the passing of Attu's moon, and people are really quick and jumpy and judgmental and headachy and not feeling well and body achy and back ache and everything. And if we go to Revelations, which I try not to do too often, it is referred to as the time of pregnancy aches for both women and men. I can't remember exactly the term. Darn, I should have been able to just whip that out there. But it's the birthing pains. That's what they referred to it as, the birthing pains that both men and women would experience. And that includes the moods and all this other stuff. So, we kind of got a Tower of Babel moment going on here for a lot of people. And I've some old friends have gotten really grumpy and irritable and bailed, and other people that I know and trust are just a little kooky, and so there's a lot of people really, really jumpy and edgy and irritable, and we need to keep that in mind. And once you take that into account, it doesn't bother you as bad. So everything is being affected, from animals
to... Well, that's what I heard, Samuel. I heard that around the 27th of this month that there's going to be more gunfire, there's going to be more rioting, there's going to be more terror attacks, and people are going to have a lot of anxiety and be angry
we're having an eclipse.
Easy. And
we're having an eclipse
I'm already
this month.
seeing it here. I was watching the news tonight, and I'm telling you, there are mass shootings in Detroit, left and right. People are just shooting each other for no reason.
Right, and that's because first of all, when you're at 96.8 degrees outside, and that's the inside temperature of your body, that's when you get grumpy and angry as well. And that's when the most violent capital murders are happening, is at 98 degrees outside. And so we're seeing a heat temperature, and everybody's tired of sitting in their house, and they're hot, and the 7-Eleven is closed, and there's no slushies. They get mad. We got to be careful of our society, because we're too damn used to having our way anytime we want it. And folks better button down, because the shit's going to hit the fan. Excuse me. I said the brown word. Anyway, I digress.
What's it like down there, Robert, in Arizona? Are you guys still having the melting garbage cans and the lights and that?
I think we lost
Robert.
Seems to.
He might have himself muted.
Maybe I didn't answer his question good enough for the fourth or fifth time. Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
Oh, is he back? Nope. Okay. Well, I just think that it is affecting people in their emotions. And myself, I just would rather avoid everybody and stay home.
Well, if we drink a lot of water and stuff like that, and if you want to throw a pinch of salt and a pinch of sugar in there, you'll create a saline solution that'll actually go to your body functional use faster. People don't know about that, about regular water, but you can absorb it better if you put a pinch of salt and a pinch of water at the bottom of your big pitcher.
Yeah, well, what I've been doing is I've been making sure that I get a little bit of Celtic salt in me every day.
There you
go,
yeah.
That way I get my minerals and that along
I
with
do the sea salt routine because it's, and they've talked people out of salt, in their diet, and boy, we really need that in our brain because, that's part of our conductivity of how we think. And I think they've spent a great deal of time dumbing down the whole populace, and I'll be the first one to tell you that because what I see on a daily basis scares the hell out of me. It really does. And and because I'm watching for stuff, and so I'm aware of it because I get the reports from around the world and I hear people's stories. So I, of course, I'm immersed in it. That's the word I was looking for. I'm immersed in it on a more heavily basis than your average person. But wow. And I'm watching these people get upset over things, and I try to calm them down and tell them, this is not you. This is not the person that I've been talking to for the last 2 years. Why are you so upset? And then I try to remind them that the lunar activity around us right now is just off the charts. And with the full moon, and of course I'm seeing more than the full moon every time up here in Montana. And I've been talking about that for years, and people don't listen to that either.
My dog will not behave tonight. If you guys hear a crunching sound, that's my dog over there gnawing on his bone.
I had to stop for a drink of water. My cats have been meowing at me, and when they do that, we're due for some volcanic activity. And
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And they get a little clingy. They want to hang out with me all the time and sleep next to me every minute of the day, and I move and they follow me. So.
Well, that's a wonderful thing, actually. I have 2 cats, and one is totally attached to me. The other one, he's only attached to me when it comes to food. But
the whiskers on the middle of your back when it's 85 degrees in the house and you're sitting there, you're too warm.
Fun, right?
Yeah, it's like, dude, go. Big hairy, fuzzy, long-haired cat. It's like, dude, go someplace else, please. Yeah, he's been my major cat's been, and for a male cat, it's really rare. But he is glued to me, follows me from every room to room. So when that happens, I know it's time for something to start happening, and we're there again. And after what I've seen electrically, and we go back to the object cluster group and the lead object in Wormwood or lead asteroid, whatever you want to call it, the OCG is highly electrical, and we've been seeing these massive storms coming in off of that. And they do some real quick damage, and 5 minutes later, they're gone. But I've never seen a storm like that. I saw it in 2015 go over the top of us. And I heard the echoing depth of the lightning because it was way up in space. And so it echoed and echoed and echoed and echoed and echoed, and it just kept going and going. And in Montana, we got all these mountains. And so, one bolt becomes 5 echoes. And I had never heard the sound of an echoing like that. And then I watched the purple lightning, and it kept coming out of the same spot every time off that one lead asteroid. And I just sat there and I almost peed my pants. I like storms, and this actually scared the hell out of me. And I've never, and I'm standing there going, do I even want to, do I want to stand outside any longer? Do I want to run screaming in the house like a little kid? Because it was so intense, I couldn't believe it. And it went right over the top of us, and I watched it go away, and it just kept doing the same thing along the path, and it was just like, whoa. And I knew right then and there that they were bouncing off of our atmosphere. And, of course, the next day I got pictures to prove that we had these huge, immense sprites over the top of Earth, and it's like, yeah, that's it.
Samuel, one of the guests in the chat wants you to go back and talk about July 27th update again, a refresher on that date.
July 27th. Oh, well, we know that there's an eclipse coming. And, of course, we know that we've just gone into a solar or a celestial pattern where all of the planets, for the first time in God only knows how long, are all on one side of the solar system and on the literally squeezed over into the 1/4 of the solar system, which I find highly odd. And that's the grouping, I'm sure, of the electricity of the proximity of all of these planets. And that blew me away for the longest time how that could all work. But I think that has to do with an increased amount of electrical effect. And so we're all drawn to each other, literally.
Well, let me ask you something, Samuel, really quick. I mean, could that be that massive fissure or scar that occurred on Mars, which was talked about many, many years ago, which could have been an electrical discharge?
Right, it's a discharge pattern.
The discharge pattern, which could have caused that massive fissure or canyon-like crater on Mars, which is, I don't know how many thousands of miles long. Are you basically referencing to the same thing here?
Yeah, but now in the Mars thing, that is believed that when Titan exploded, that one of the major pieces, which of course would be knocked out of a pattern at a higher rate of speed than normal, scarred and burned off the entire upper atmosphere of Mars at this destructionary pattern so many hundreds of thousands of years ago. Now, there's many varying theories, but I've always believed that, yes, a close pass is what caused the cavern or the canals of Mars, canale.
Right.
And the electrical discharge patterns prove that. And there's another point of reference, is like Bilibino, Russia. They have the same literal scarring patterns. And I'm sure at one point in time, and that was probably the North Pole of Earth, where we had these close proximity planetary discharges of such immense proportion that, you know, these cracks could be formed from lightning bolts as well. These major, you know, huge split opens from electrical discharge where it literally rips material of magnetic value out of the planet and takes it into space. We don't know exactly. And these discharges have been killing entire herds of reindeer and stuff in the north for the last, 5 years. And these are planetary northern passes. So it's really hard to say unless you're actually standing there watching it exactly what's what. But I believe that a lot of this is happening. And, of course, we're not hearing it on because all of our major media is stifling all of this information. And
they're bought and sold off by the oligarchs, you know, the money masters. We've known that for a long time,
right,
Samuel.
Yeah.
You know, so to get any truth out of them is beyond
and
absurd.
blatant evidence of that is how the Meteorological Society has decided to suddenly go to cartoons instead of showing us any. I mean, you can't even get a decent global map anywhere hardly anymore unless you really know what you're doing and you find and search and learn tools to bring these things up and pay membership fees and all this other stuff. And fortunately, I got a couple of local ones that I find good ones every once in a while to use, and they last a little while, and then I have to move on. But yeah, they've decided to start showing cartoon drawings and talk about low pressure systems and highs and this and that and the other thing. And their descriptive language is that anybody who's been listening to the weather long enough understands that they're kind of sort of working their way around the truth. And, like my favorite one to this day is they were calling a core of an upper level storm, which is basically Nepesi's passing core coming down into our atmosphere and literally sucking the crap out of it and causing all these major tornadoes and wind effects as it leaves, because there's tails that happen behind it. And those little eddies, it's like if you put a boat oar in the water and you push the paddle and then you pull the paddle out, there's about 87 little eddies that come all of a sudden out of nowhere, and they're little spinnies. And that's kind of what's happening. As they come in close to us, they cause a wave or a big, huge push cloud, and then they pass us by and they touch down briefly or discharge or push each other away, and then they leave, and then the wake and all the weather and the crazy that goes along with it. Sucking wind followed by blowing wind. It's really weird how they work when they pass things. sort of an odd transition, almost like an arc rather than a semicircle.
No, makes sense. Makes sense.
Daniel, this is affecting the animals also in their behavior. Am I correct?
Both for good and bad.
So explain what you mean good and bad.
Well, I truly believe that the ascension started in about 2010 with proximity of the second sun and Immeru, of course, when all of that started, and we're, because of this harmonic human resonance and all of this and the connecting of the spiritual and all of that, I believe that the animals are evolving as well in mass evolution. I don't think evolution is a slow process. I think it's fast. We're seeing numerous deer births and bear behavior and all sorts of animal behaviors that have suddenly changed. And, of course, we're seeing die out of certain species. And we're seeing how the major, the elephants are suffering, this, that, and the other thing. And we're going into a climatary transition where some of the older animals are evolving out, and some of the new stuff is, I bet you we're going to even see new species here within the next 20 to 80 years. Who knows what's going on, but I know that the animals are different. They're acting different.
Yeah, I agree with you, Samuel. I mean, I know that there are multiple species dying off as multiple new species are being, mutated in, so that's a fact. Oh, but you're right about the animal behavior. I mean, elephants, more so, I've seen more of these stories than anything else. Elephants behaving so strangely. Well, I wouldn't say strangely. Maybe they're tired of being locked up and mistreated. If I were an elephant and I was chained up and tied up and beaten, yeah, I think I'd react when my consciousness kicked in and said, okay, I'm just not going to do this anymore. So
water in their brain is being as affected as well.
Maybe their consciousness is evolving at this point and saying, you know what, I'm just not going to be a slave to anybody anymore. So there's a lot of factors going on here.
Well, there's a lot of that going on right now.
For you guys, where a bear at the circus, when they brought the bear out for the act, it broke loose and it mauled one of the handlers. And that's the first impression I got, because he started going after the one guy, then he turned around and ran after the other guy, and they could not get him off him. And I could tell that bear was thinking, wait till I get out of here, and I'm going to get a hold of you. He had enough.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
It's all changing, and the bee stings and have been happening the last couple of days. But that happens anyway. But animal behavior has definitely notably changed. We have birds here that we can't account for, that we've never seen before, and we had an influx of turkeys all of a sudden the last 5 years that we never used to openly see, and now we see them constantly. And
the magnetic migration pole shift, without a question, Samuel. That's without a question in my mind.
Yeah, and transition of coyotes.
Migrating. Yeah, they're migrating to places I've never seen. Look, I live in Phoenix, right? And we're talking about rural, or not rural, but within the Phoenix City area. We've got foxes and coyotes running within neighborhoods. Never heard of, never seen, but now it's being witnessed. My next door neighbor has, security cams, and he's been filming them.
We have
2,
foxes
3 o'clock
that we've
in the
never
morning.
seen before, and we have a herd of foxes that we never saw before, and we've had wolf kills down here in the city of killing deer along the riverbed, and they never used to be this low. Now, granted, it's way dry up there, and they're suffering from lack of food. Looking at Norway, Norway had a good bump today too. We're seeing geological, we're seeing physiological, we're seeing sociological, we're seeing geological. I already said that one, yeah.
Another thing I'm noticing, Samuel, is there have been a lot of people that are drowning, and there's been like an undertow that's pulling people under.
Well, that has to do with that rotational storm off the Atlantic currently. It has been, it's not a storm, it's a high-pressure system that's been affecting so far it's been holding back the hurricanes from forming, which has been a good thing. But of course, shark attacks. They've had shark attacks in New York, which never used to happen either.
Yeah.
And that shows you, now, I believe that the mid-Earth bulge has already changed. And that's what a lot of this missing and drawing out of tides has suddenly been. I think we're already looking at, because there was a tsunami the other day. Where was it? In Spain. They had a 5-foot wave come in. And
they weren't calling it a tsunami, though. They were calling it something else, but I know exactly what you're saying.
What if the Earth tipped 1 degree yank? You'd see a 5-foot increase in the mid-Earth bulge right there. Boom, here, have a 5-foot wave tsunami, because it raised up or lowered, and then that wave came in.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And we know that Africa is tectonic. We know that Africa is moving south. Maybe Africa moves south in a big jolt again, because they've had a series of major earthquakes along the Madagascar region. So it's entirely possible that Africa jolted a few feet, and they're not reporting that, because we know that some people are talking a 75-kilometer movement south of the overall continent of Africa, making the Mediterranean Sea 75 kilometers wider. So, and there are reports. I can't, of course, prove that, but this is what I hear.
Right.
So, and these guys aren't going to stick their reputation on the line for just, now there are some people that do that, and those people who would like Photoshop for some silly reason, which I still wouldn't understand, but why, to mislead people for attention. But anyway, I believe that we have to pay attention to the reports, and when you get several of them and they start stacking up from people who aren't linked in different parts of the world, then it's time to start listening.
Yeah, well, there's story after story, coming out of, let's see here, the UK, man attacked by seal in Kingswear. And the stories just go on and on. I mean, here we go, 11 dead after strong winds and high waves capsized towards boat on Table Rock Lake in Missouri. Right. And they just keep going forward here. Massive waterspout buzzes boat in southwestern Italy.
And the thing that I don't understand about the Missouri thing, I saw the video. Yes, it was rough water, but why did so many people drown? I mean, they didn't even get a chance. It's like they get pulled under for some reason. Now,
that boat has a canopy, and that canopy locked.
Oklahoma, that they're having a lot of stories where people are being pulled under the water.
They weren't made to wear their life jackets. The life jackets popped up and they were empty, so they weren't forced ahead of time. It was probably lack of maintenance and bad supervision. And that the guy that was the driver, he was a little old man, and he probably got a little less than forcing people to wear life jackets. They probably got wet and stink, real bad, that kind of thing. And one silly thing leads to another.
Major boating accidents. Did you see the one in Puerto Rico where it exploded and they had to airlift that one girl to Florida she was burned so bad? And,
with the meteor.
Take her legs off, and she was a ballerina.
Yeah, you talking about the meteor that punched through the whole of the boat, the top roof of the boat?
No, that was in Hawaii. I'm talking there was a tour boat in Puerto Rico that
was a bomb
for some reason, and all the people in the back of the boat were burned really bad, and they had to airlift several people to Florida.
Yeah, they had 2 of those. They had 2 of those. That was a tourist bomb. And somebody's pissed at the touristas. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on, and major flooding all over the world. In Germany and Russia got their butt kicked all last week, and we barely see any of those reports. And massive flooding in Greece, and we know that Nepesity is the rain bomb. And when she comes in, she'll suck up a whole bunch of atmosphere, and then when she gets full, because I think she's about the size of Earth or smaller. I'm not totally sure. She might be a little bit bigger than Earth. I could be wrong. And when she sucks up a whole bunch of atmosphere from the proximity of the 2 of them and then just starts to leave, all of that stuff starts dropping back down. And I got so many videos, and you can see it's the exact site of Nepesity. We see the sightings over and over and over again. And this is a planetary pass. And, of course, for the last, couple of months, I've been warning everybody, please listen to this because it's happening, and it's only going to get worse in the next month or 2. and you know, we see the heightened activity in August and September, and then of course we're seeing the July eclipse, which we were mentioning, and so I think this year we might have a huge uptick in major events, worse than the year before. So, you know, and of course, you know, I don't want the gloom and doom, but I'm also at the same time tired of waiting, because these suckers have been coming past us over and over, time after time, scare after scare, and they're so massive and so huge, and there's so much debris and many things along with it. And the other day we saw another 3 or 4 fall off, and we got video footage of them coming in. And the reports, you have to literally go look them up. We're not hearing about the asteroids and the meteors coming in anymore like we used to. I mean, the news used to cover that. There was, you know, an asteroid there, and so now there are so many of them they don't even cover it anymore.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. Just to top this off, I just wanted to throw this in. 2 children bitten by sharks,
New York,
on Fire Island. Exactly. So, you know, the animal behavior is getting more and more erratic because they understand and feel the effects of what is happening to the planet much more than we are feeling it. First of all, their magnetic compass has been completely thrown off because of the extreme wobbling of the planet. We're the last ones to feel it. But here's how the effects, Samuel, I'd like to get your take on this, this is how I'm seeing the effects taking place sociologically within the human aspect of what's going on. Look at the turmoil that has, you know, basically erupted across the planet on a political scale. We're watching, you know, truth bombs being dropped left and right. Now you have a faction of people who are just lulled, who have been lulled to sleep for so long that there's a certain portion of them who are waking up and getting very, very angry to the reality of the lies that they've been fed for so long. Now there's our group who have been awakened for a long time. We're not so sociologically, we're not captured by this rude awakening, but there's so many people. We're talking about hundreds of billions of people here who have been woken up now to the lies of which have been touted by the mainstream media for so long, that this could erupt into a total, I want to say, I hope not, but a total civil planetary war is how I'm witnessing all this, because, you know, the left is getting more irate, more aggravated, where the right, the conservative people are, you know, very, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Very passive, and, you know, not to aggravate the situation, but the left is getting more and more aggravating, or being aggravated by its own interior workings. In other words, they're agitating themselves into a frenzy. What's your take on that? Is it?
Well, I totally agree. We're seeing finger pointing. We're seeing divisiveness. We're seeing behavior from people that is just. Well, I'm still chuckling over the last election of the United States. So I mean, it's like, how the hell did that happen? So, you know, we see pendulum swing, and I like my sociology as good as the next guy, but sociologically speaking, I'm in awe that this is going on, and yet there isn't a thing that we can do to stop this bull that's rushing down the street, and you can't get in the way of it, and yet you got to somehow manage to, you know, grab a friend of yours off the running pace at the running of the bulls and say, hey, come here, let me help you, and because it is a running of the bulls, and it's the herd has spooked, and it's already.
Well, the herd is running off the cliff. They're throwing themselves off the cliff at this point, Sam.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We are already at the spook ratio. And I think people need to seriously, you know, take a step backwards and calm down, and yet at the same time take a step forward and prepare, and, you know, be that change that you seek, because all of this stuff, no matter what, from political sides to emotional to sociological, we all have to take a step forward, and we cannot sit here and expect somebody else to do it for us, our government or whatever, or a club or a group or whatever. we have to kind of start and say, okay, where is it that I can make the change for the better, and stop with the finger pointing. And I see so many good friends get caught up in these divisive arguments over, well, so-and-so said this versus, and then before you know it, you're pointing a finger, and so-and-so did this, and so-and-so did that. And I'm not saying forgive these transgressions, but I'm seriously think we need to focus on doing it right instead of allowing the crap to continue. We do have to take responsibility for it. We have to say enough is enough, and yet at the same time, we can't add to the mayhem.
Well, you know what, though, Sam? A lot of people have to stop being, consciously manipulated. I mean, we've been lulled to sleep for so long that there's a certain faction of people who want to maintain that social conditioning. And for all of us who have awoken for quite a long time are saying, can't you see, the reality of the manipulation? And the more we continue to try and wake them and push them into consciousness, it's like a rabid animal that's being trapped in a corner. The only thing it has left, because it's unconscious of itself, is going to be to fight back. And I think this is exactly what we're seeing at this point. I just hope it doesn't erupt into some sort of civil war, because it sure looks like it's being pushed that way.
Well, we have to go beyond things a little bit. When people talk about knowing about extraterrestrial life and these planets and all of this stuff, people limit their outlook point of view and start seeing it only from little tiny Earth here and how those things are out there. But we have to take into account that there's huge amounts of life forms out there. And the overall bigger picture will illuminate as well as suppress some of the crazy. There's so much going on that people haven't got the merest of clues of how large this whole of what's happening is going on. And if we realize, and actually I have to kind of give it to Trump, he did point it out a little bit, if we realize what the common goal or the common enemy, and I'm not going to say there is one, because there is no enemy out there that we at this point in time have the ability to even fight, so therefore we shouldn't choose one in the first place. We have to stop, take 5 minutes, recoup ourselves here, because we've got an enemy underneath our butts. This Earth is about to do a dance from hell, and it's already doing it. And people need to pay attention and realize that life is not like it was last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's changed. And we have to face that now, because everything underneath our feet is changing. The weather, the wind, the money, everything, political, social, physical, everything is changing. So we have to be on our game and say, okay, I'm not going to be part of this downward slide of that landslide of crazy people. So you behave yourself in that department. And on the same token, we have to watch ourselves politically to not finger point or get in fights when we're driving home on the road rage routine and get shot because you get out of your car. I mean, we've got to change how we're doing things, because look how crazy it's gotten. And people have to realize that it's happening right now.
You know what? You just made me think of something. Are you familiar with the Deagle.com, where it shows
Just from Dr. Deagle?
No, not Dr. Deagle. The Deagle map, or Deagle.com, and I think it is a offshoot of some institute, right? Not okay. Dr. Deagle. Got nothing to do with it. But it shows the percentage of people, or the actual amount of population per geographic location: the United States, Mexico, the African continent, but projected, current and projected. But if you go look at Deagle.com, it shows the projection for the United States were 350 million so people. It shows the projection, I can't remember the date, I think it's 2022, 2025, I can't remember. But it has the projection for the actual amount of people, population in the United States, from 350 million to like 22 million. And it's different in each region of the world, but it shows a massive decline in population worldwide. And yet, here this this, a web page sits with no explanation. We don't know who or where it's really attached to, but yet it's, it is on the web and you can actually still see it. It hasn't been taken down. How do we get from 350 million people to 22 million people? It sure looks like we're seeing why it's happening now. And, are they part of the deep state or the New World Order cabal or whatever?
We've got a plague going on in all of our hospitals right now, and they're not talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yes.
There's a do not resuscitate for most senior citizens nowadays in most states where they are not taking care of the people anymore. They've cut, what happened to that story in Louisiana? All those people they booted off out of all the homes.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
We have a complete disconnect from society by our government, and that is basically boils down to the tyranny and all this other stuff and all those other words I don't want to throw out on the table right now. But the point with it is that the system is completely broken. And when it starts treating its citizens like that, we've got to stop it. But there is no way to stop this unless we have a major, and this is where I almost say, okay, we need a natural disaster for us to get our poop in a group. Because the way things are going, if we don't have something severe or drastic, we're going to see a lot of people die no matter what anyway. Because we're seeing Yosemite disease. We've got stories of West Nile virus coming back into Montana again. I already had West Nile virus about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe longer, maybe 10 years ago.
We got a caller that called in. She's been waiting patiently.
Oh, go ahead.
Give her a chance to ask a question. Huggy Bear, you got a question tonight?
Oh, hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Sam. This is Chris. I'm on your, I'm always telling you I'm on your Facebook, and I'll put photos out there. I'm under Lisa Meyer, so you know.
Okay.
It's just another name I went by, Lisa.
Okay.
My real name is Chris. I watch the sky a lot. I went out today just to get the trash can, and I can look up and see huge planets and the smaller ones, but they're getting bigger too. And then I can also see, I don't know where everybody's at on this call, but I've been watching this for years now, every day almost, and I feel like I'm seeing the dragon, literally, and they're hiding. Huge
well, the dragon
to the west.
The original legend of the dragon came from the second cycle, or 8,000 years ago, of China. And that was the onset of recorded history pretty much currently that we're running off of in a major way. And the dragon is wormwood. The group of asteroids, the OCG as I refer, the Object Cluster Group, is sighted daily. And that thing is so big, I got pictures of it in a storm, and then Attu's moon rounded out, and it was a video that was shot yesterday, I believe. And if we don't have something major happen in the next week, I'll be a monkey's uncle. But
well, I agree with you on we need a mass awakening, because I have tried for years and I've given up. I just name off of either, I'm looked at as crazy, insane. I don't know what I'm talking about. It goes right through and over people.
I too
right
tried to bring people out to Montana and have them, but you don't want to form a cult, because you don't want to have people put their money in and move away from their homes and uproot their kids out of school and all this other stuff to be in a situation where you can't absolutely 100% say that, this is going to happen. So it's a really difficult thing. So I think we're going to basically boil down to, when the shit hits the fan, then people are going to go, oh, crap, now what do I do? And so I've pretty much given up on trying to talk people into, I would love to get a philanthropist that wants to slap $2 or $3 or $5 million into a project for me that I could, be a resounding board member over, because I don't want to be a king or a president or anything like that. But there's a lot of things people should have done, and what I'm telling them to do is start learning to garden right now. Learn your skills right now, because everything is changing, and I don't even know if we're going to get to grow a crop here in the next few years, because I know that everything is frying.
It's getting, all of our food from the chemtrail, I call it a fallout for decades now, is literally contaminated everything, even our water. I've been testing it for weeks now. It's bad.
And then we are, look at Canada. They've got the highest rate of thyroid cancer and thyroid surgery because they've got bombarded by Fukushima, and we in Montana have gotten a bunch of it too. And
California,
I don't even want to go into those
Oregon, exactly, all of the West Coast.
Yeah, we're getting radiated like crazy. We're wearing this for the rest of our next million generations. We will have Fukushima in us.
I had a bag of activated charcoal, you know what I did? About a week or two ago. I stood in the shower, and I literally put it all over my hair. I put it in a big bowl with hot water and some Dawn dish detergent. I poured it, and I could feel just tons of the crap just falling off of me, coming off. Everybody should do that.
You know what, Huggy Bear, don't forget about the fact that we've been being sprayed on for the last 2 decades with all kinds of garbage, aluminum oxide, barium, strontium, sulfur dioxide, everything else, and that's going into the land, it's going into the water, it's going into our physical body, and all those heavy metals need to be extracted from us as well.
Right.
Well, they're already aware that there's a culling of the herd coming. Now, if you're some guy sitting, in a nice fancy chair in some office, some place, and they tell you, here, this is your job, you make some pretty, shitty decisions. And then let's take into account the demigods over above us who know that this is going to happen and happens every 3,654 years. And people get wiped out because we've got to reduce the number of people because we really screwed up our every living environment whatsoever. Therefore, we're screwed, and it's time to pay for dinner. And Mom and Dad are home, and they're pissed.
Well, what they did, Sam, they knew what they were doing because they planned it all out methodically right before 9/11. They planned out cell phone technology, television, bringing it in. Well, they really have drawn people in where
you got to remember that there's way more factions going on than just a they. It is them. It's a group of thems. And people, this is what I was talking about earlier, when you take into consideration that it is numerous factions all trying to get their own manipulative way, spending millions of dollars and billions of dollars to do so. And so we've got, we don't have one agenda going, we've got 18. And then you've also got to take into account that there's the ET agenda. And then there's the rogue ET agenda. And then there's the bad guy ET agenda. And then there's the other.
That's my question. I don't really have too many more people I respect in this category. You're one of them. So my question is, obviously the Anunnaki are back. They have to be. Their planets are here. Are they all bad?
Well,
are any of them good?
Are we humans all good or all bad? You're going to have a factional. You're going to have a right wing. You're going to have a conservative. You're going to have they all put pants on and they all go poop. They just live a hell of a lot longer than we do, and they live on food and dietary monatomic gold and stuff and prolong their lives, etc. And we are the worker class that provides all of these extra commodities. We're like, pardon the expression, the Chinese workforce providing low economic created materials at a very low wage so that they don't have to actually do the jobs themselves. Now
and my last question is, are they interdimensional or multi? I know there's
it depends on which faction you're talking about. Now, the Pleiadians have a multidimensional faction ability. I don't believe the Anunnaki per se, the people living on the crossing planets here, have too great of technology beyond the Pleiadians or below the Pleiadians. But I know my only experience is with Pleiadian technology. I have not met the Anunnaki personally. So I can't talk about their technology level, but I know that the United States has certain technology levels that they are not also sharing with the common public that are way years beyond anything that we even think of now.
I agree.
Yeah, I know that for a fact because I've seen some of it. And and they don't share all of that, and that's highly classified information stuff, and I just leave all that alone. But
there's a lot of talk that there's a lot of talk about when a certain time comes that we're all going to be like under some basic attack. It's in a biblical sense.
That's the theory, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fear tactic, because what people don't understand is the United States, pardon the expression, and here I'm sticking my foot out there to be chopped off, they don't have as much power as people assume. Every time they use that magic word, they, we hand them immense amounts of power because we become immediately afraid of them. Yes, they are very powerful. Yes, they can do all kinds of crazy shit. Yes, you can vanish. Yes, you can be brought to places and have your constitutional rights completely ignored. Yes, they will stretch the law to the letter of the limit and harass you and make your life a living hell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or you can completely vanish and never ever be heard from again. I mean, there's many extremities, but they will not do that because most people are little fish. And you got to realize that they've got to account for it one way or another to their boss, and if it doesn't make them a buck, they're not interested. Most of us are not rich enough to interest them. It's the big guys they want, and they want their golden ticket on the bus when it comes to scratch day. Then they're going to go hide down in their little holes if they're informed enough. If they're not informed, they're part of the loop as well, and they're going to be fodder banging at the door going, let me in, when the day the shit hits the fan, if it hits the fan. And I hope and pray that there wasn't some special deal that was been made to stop this cycle, because, boy, if it gets any worse and goes on for any longer, I'm not sure I want to be around for this.
Well, so I looked up around 7 o'clock this evening, and I definitely seen debris coming down. And I've been seeing debris, but this is
I'm watching the asteroids go by every day by eye, and I'm just in awe.
Uh-huh.
And it's like a fishbowl.
And they're heading westerly. Yeah, and what is the dark? This is what I'm seeing out here to the west.
The shadow back of a dark side showing planet.
It is.
And Atu and Atu's moon have been the most of the ones that have been dark recently.
So on the other side is where they actually look like the color that they are, or the light.
Literally, Nibiru is literally everywhere on the right-hand side of the sun, filling up the upper three-quarters of the sky. Saru is showing its illuminated core in the western, on the left side of the sun, in the lower horizontal level. Saru is showing her core. She's showing hardcore again, been around for about a month, where we could actually visibly see her regularly. And then, of course, Atu is above us, and the Pesci keeps crossing above us, and then Uri is above us and behind us. And then his Saturn is on its way in, and we're staring at Nibiru hardcore now during the day that we have not seen her in a very long time. So she's inbound. She's going to be right over the top of us regularly, maybe a month or two.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for letting me talk. I'm curious. I'm getting pictures of them where they're right above me. You're right.
Yeah, well, they've always been above us.
The white that I'm seeing, is that their clouds I'm seeing? Is that
the teeny tiny little clouds are their atmospheres, and they're so close, and we've got so many pictures, and people have to realize that these are not small planets we're looking for. We're looking for sky fillers, and you've seen them yourself, so you know
they're huge.
They're massive because
they
so
take
close.
up the whole sky. Right. I can see them. If you just look, immediately I'll see the roundness. You have to look between the clouds. Look at the dark, not the light.
And unfortunately, people closer to sea level do not get the view that we get up here in Montana, and I'm terribly sorry for all you suckers. I'm only kidding. Down there who don't see, as well as we do up here. But up here, it's like, oh my God, I can't. And the other day I sat in town, and I sat for an hour looking up, and nobody looked up. It was just amazing. It's like you're missing the greatest show of all time.
No, because their heads are all stuck in their cell phones or iPads or Androids, and they're always looking down.
Yep.
Sucking on their vape pen.
And I think that's what the zombie apocalypse is. That they turned everybody into zombies with electronics.
Right.
I agree.
Well, now they're talking about how much
They don't want anybody to survive.
Now they're talking about how much too much time on cell phones.
They want people to survive. Just them.
No.
Just them.
As long as they keep their job and can dictate where the money goes and who gets it, then they're happy.
How does our species survive that are not them? You know, is it the ones that are in caves, like Native American Hopis?
No. We've survived this over and over and over again, and we're all a melting pot, and we're all come from Africa in the last generation, and before that was something else, and before that was something else, and before that they need the workers. We're gonna be fine. There's just going to be a hell of a lot less of us, and that way we repopulate the earth in the next 4,000 years, and then we rebuild our cities, and everything that's from the old age rusts away, and you never see it again. And then we'll start all over and get the commodity all stacked up like we did the last time. And then they'll make special deals with special envoys, with special folks, and we'll do the whole process all over again, unless you evolve out.
Break the cycle.
Mm-hmm. Because not everyone will. Not, they need the workers, and it's like trying to stop selling oil tomorrow. It's not going to happen.
I think I'm pretty sure there's like a feeding process, like they feed off of our energy.
Well, that would be one faction. That would be the interdimensional bad guys, number F. There's all sorts of. That also boils back down to people being fearful and people being edgy and finger pointing. Don't do that right now. ET is cool. We're lucky we're alive. I'm not going to point any fingers just in case I can get in trouble for it. So I'll behave myself and keep my head, in the wind and looking around and not hide, but not stand on the street corner and get myself shot either. So, that we have to be tippy-toe, but we can also be brave and awake. But just
I do believe that our dimension right now is kind of crossing with another dimension, and I'll tell you why. I just posted a video on my YouTube or on my Facebook channel where these cars are going through an intersection and they smash right into nothing and spin around. Several cars did this in the same area.
Well, then they hit a cloaked vehicle or a cloaked tank or something. Because cloaking technology exists.
There was nothing there, but I'm telling you, the whole front end of these cars were impacting into something. And
if you want a shock, go to YouTube.
Hard, they were spinning around.
Type in invisible cloth military application on YouTube.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
And for those people out there who are still wondering as to the existence of ET and how do I deal with it, ET does not need doors. So every time you lock your door at night and put that extra slide lock across and you go, oh, God, I'm going to worry about an ET abduction, they don't need doors. So don't worry about that. If you're going to get an abduction situation, the best thing you can do is try to deal with it and be as polite to them as they're being polite to you, because that's how it boils down to. You get back what you put off. And in our coming future, that's exactly the same thing. You will get back what you put off. You put out evil and finger pointing, and that's exactly what you're going to get back. And right now, we all have to be forgiving and loving and careful, and hope to God that we have a roof over our heads next week when people in Iowa and Ohio and Illinois tonight don't. Because we're seeing the beginnings of some extreme weather, and this is only going to get worse. And just hope to God it does not happen to you, and if it does, may you have an extra tarp sitting in your cellar to cover over the rain so you don't lose everything you own. It's terrible times right now, and these are hard winds, and when you're seeing trees being ripped up from the ground and sheets of metal spun like licorice, that is a pretty spooky fast wind, and so you'll have about 30 seconds to go, oh crap, and then you're flying through the air. So folks, put your stuff away, that way you don't get killed by it, and then take care and then start making family plans. And like we talked about before, run the house without electricity for a day and find out just how wonderful it is without any power. And then you'll start...
Be careful on vacation.
Oh, God.
Run around the water. Be careful.
Oh, I can't even imagine taking a vacation right now. All those funds personally would be better allocated for buying food. I'm sorry, I can't even imagine taking a vacation.
I can't imagine taking one either, but these people that are going on vacation, they're letting They just had it up here at Lake St. Clair, the St. Clair River. 3 little girls were sucked right under and taken away. I mean, it's
well, yeah, everything's we're not in charge of and the weather and the landscape is never permanent, and we're seeing extreme changes where all of a sudden the landscape is no longer there. What was there 5 minutes ago is just now gone down the mountain, and that's happening all over the world too. Landslides in Italy and Greece and Turkey and Russia and China and
right.
We're not getting this news, and I search for it every day. That's why I find this information.
Yeah, I post it too. All the buildings that are falling down in China and being washed away with their flooding, they aren't saying anything about it on our news.
I don't think I'd buy a brand new car right now. You'd be kissing it goodbye to hail damage in the next couple of months, and have that old sleeping bag ready at the door for when that hail starts coming, and then go throw it across your windshield. The sleeping bags will stop them from breaking sometimes, but God, I mean the golf ball and tennis ball size hail coming off these planets and dropping back into our atmosphere at 325 miles an hour, and the amounts of hail. People have forgotten how rare hail used to be. People have forgotten what the size of our sun used to be. I see these films and I talk about the Final Countdown video. I always hang up. And it shows the 2 different suns. And our sun is so tiny compared to the standard red. It's just unbelievable. And that standard red is frying the hell out of us right now. And we've been looking at it for almost 8-9 years now. 6 years, excuse me. And we've been staring at it for 6 years, and people have forgotten the size of our sun in 6 years. I'm amazed.
What about Hercules?
Hercules? That's that big, huge, weird thing behind it that sometimes looks brown on the outside edges, and it gets illuminated by the Nibiru tool star from the side, and people think, oh, look, it's a halo. No, you're seeing the backside of Hercules. And
I'm actually considering wearing. I used to sleep with my boots on a couple years ago.
You don't need to worry until literally you don't have to freak out about any of this until you end up in a seismological or a weather event, and you need to plan for both. And once you do that, then you can stop the worry process because it's going to happen. The question is when, not if.
Yeah, next big event, in my opinion, Samuel, is going to be the West Coast. It's going to be San Francisco, Washington, and Oregon, with a massive, probably 11.0 earthquake with a massive tsunami. I think that's the next big event to come in.
Or a volcano going off in Washington State, Oregon State, or I could go on for about 5 other things, but yeah, or we get hit by another Chelyabinsk, another asteroid comes in, which is expected.
Yeah, I'm with the hypothesis of apotheosis, pardon the pun. 2028. That will be the game changer. That will be cataclysmic worldwide. It'll be a total cataclysmic event.
And that might run right along with the visitation of these planets, because they could be here that long still too.
True.
And once they pass us.
Well, right. Well, think about how long it's taken the system to come in. Think about how long it takes it to go out.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And I've talked about that, and we don't know how long it took them. We knew they were on their way a long time ago, and many, many, many years ago. Yeah, Oregon is quite active, and Truvula, and I'm looking at the geologic reports again. Afghanistan just had a nice jolt. Norway's had some woogie, and Chile, and now Japan's been pretty active the last couple of days again. The Canary Islands are in full P wave, full on P wave with microquakes at the Canary Islands as we speak. Yep, she's very active, very dark in Antarctica right now. There's multiple minor earthquakes going on in Antarctica at Palmer Station. It's literally black as Yellowstone right now, which is awesome. But then we're seeing volcanic activity in Antarctica too. I guarantee.
And yet you have all this activity down there with all these multinational corporations down in Antarctica trying to supposedly excavate high technology, UFO technology. You had the so-called head of state during the elections, Nut Kerry, go down there in the middle of the election. John McCain going down there. Neil Armstrong
they were probably
going there.
pulling the emissary game and trying to make deals and stuff like that. Big Sur of Mexico is black right now in seismic chart.
And what about the dust coming off of the Sahara? Now this is the second time this is happening, and there's testimonies coming out of California that they're getting all this red dust coming in. They're saying it's from the Sahara. What's your thought on that? Well,
now the only way to tell the difference between the iron oxide ore that comes out of the Sahara and the stuff that comes from Isatum and the planetary groups and the asteroid fields would be, of course, an electron microscope test. But currently, you'd have to check the direction of the dust, where this dust is coming from, and then you'd have to follow its path to actually be
it's
sure
going westwardly. That's what
they say.
Well,
of course. The weather patterns in in northeast Africa has gone backwards from where it used to be, which is great for the Sudan because they may eventually get rain down there, we hope. But it's a hard call, but there's geologic reports that the iron oxide dust shows up every 4,000 years. So, we, of course, are pointing to the Nibiru group again, and, any reports that they're going to tell you this iron oxide is coming from the desert without a test is plausible, but not as likely. And, of course, does it collect in the middle of the planet, in the middle of the hemisphere, in the hot region? Would that debris settle in our atmosphere in the middle, or would it settle at the North Pole or the South Pole, or, we don't know. But I imagine.
Right. Well, that would definitely depend on the jet stream, where it's carrying it, how it's carrying it.
Right. And then you'd have to do an independent study, and then look at it through an electron microscope to be absolutely sure. But I truly believe a good portion of, the dust and debris. I mean, look what's going on our car windows. And everybody is, like, scraping their cars and putting a magnet to this dust, and it's picking up. So we know that there's, chemtrail crap, plus there's a whole bunch of space magnet dust, because these asteroids are going over, and I'm sure a lot of that debris is falling on us, which is also causing the respiratory issues as well. Now, remember,
I'm going to agree with you. The respiratory issues are multi-level here.
A lot of people are blaming the government for doing this, but a lot of this, people blamed chemtrails for the longest time, and a good portion of these clouds were the ion drag-off clouds between the planets as well. And if they're big and huge and massive, then they're not a chemtrail, because chemtrails are small and dispersant over time.
Right.
And the big, wide stretch across the skies are either the object cluster group or an ion reach between the planets.
I'm seeing tonight on the Weather Channel, I have never seen so many humongous, massive, all this week. I mean massively huge tornadoes.
Right.
Well,
Everywhere.
that's because that's the thing. That's the thing, Huggy Bear. Think about it. The hurricane season's been totally quiet, gone. Where the hurricanes been? All of a sudden, we have tornadic activity ramping up when there's not supposed to be any happening right now. So again, the whole ecosystem is off. The whole jet stream is off, and we have all this, chaotic activity taking place. Go ahead.
And if you look at the radar patterns, they show the actual base clouds of what we've already documented for the last 8 years of the base clouds of these planets. And when those base clouds hit us, they're causing these hurricane force winds, and this is where the electrical storms and the push-off of the planets, because they don't want to touch each other, so they come into close paths, and then we have this massive storm between, which lasts for anywhere from a half hour to an hour, and then the other planet goes on its merry little way again, and meanwhile we have all this crazy weather and rotational lows and high-pressure systems all over the place. I've never seen so many lows and highs. They're just numerous, and they're stable, and they don't move like they're supposed to. And since when have we had repeated day after day after storms that go down from the middle of the country to the East Coast in the same weather pattern over and over again. That's not normal either. And that has to do with the same similar passing planet day after day, causing the same jet stream and ultra ionosphere effects that are causing the same patterns over and over again, which matches the base cloud pictures of all the planets we've documented over the last 6 to 8 years. It all matches. And this is why we call close pass. Otherwise, we'd say, well, the planet's, probably 50 or 60 lunar units away, but we know they come closer. We've seen evidence of it.
Question: was it disinformation that they passed out that the system comes to us? Because I know I've heard you say we go into it.
Well, if you look at the overall size of everything, man is very arrogant. And we think that we're the center of the universe, and we're doing this and we're doing that. Nibiru, that one planet X is coming here. And, of course, we know that there are 8 planets and an extra star attached to us, because that isn't known. That's information that comes from me personally, and the binary solar system and everything. And that comes from my paper back in 1980, 79, 78, 1980. Anyway. I got my kids talking so loud I can almost lose track here.
Is your paper anywhere online? Did you ever get to publish it out
there?
No,
this was before computers, and they took it. They took a copy. They took the copy of it from school and made it vanish, and those teachers would never speak to me again.
Wow.
And I'm sure it's in the Harvard Library for Classified Documents, probably Hofman, 1980.
Yeah.
And it's a simple paper. I mean, it's very basic. I was from a teenage high school student. And it basically, I stated that my belief pattern was that we were a chemistry equation in space, and that we, in order to be what we are, we had to have 2 suns, because our planetary atomic value outweighed the ability of our small dwarf yellow star to hold all these planets. And then in order to take into consideration the aberrant orbital patterns at the end of our solar system near Neptune and Pluto and all of that, there was something weird going on. I surmised from the information and my training in subatomic chemistry and everything that we had to have a second sun in order to have a secondary group of planets, in order to have that jog in our outer atmosphere. There had to be something attached to something. And then I worked it out.
Is it true we were part of a bigger planet and then we
Well, the belief is that we were from a planet called Titan, and, of course, whoever slings out these names. Anyway, we were supposedly off a much larger planet, and then the scuttlebutt is with the change of this destructive force of occurrence in management change of the overall system of the people who own and rule our system, at a catastrophic event, took over. And I think at some point in time, because they say that Venus is not originally from our solar system, so it's an added proton, so to speak. And because of that, it broke up the disruptive structure of the overall compound of the binary solar system. And then we ended up with the Kuiper Belt and all the rocks and blah, 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 blah. Mars being scarred and burned off atmosphere, and the people that lived there are dead now. And then, Adam means man from the red planet in Swahili, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, supposedly at one point in time we were from a larger planet, where we were in a massive planet, literally the size of Nibiru and Saru.
How long has this been going on? This every 3,648 years or so. Do you know how long it's been?
The cycle of the Nibiru planet has been permanent since the whole creation of whatever, either that drastic change of Titan, or unless Earth was placed here as the chemistry equation to create the commodities on purpose. And that other story is incorrect, because I don't know all of the truth. I only know pieces of it. The history of Earth is about 4.8 billion years old. Now, we know that the cyclic collection of the commodities has been going on for at least 1 million years. So, I mean, that's in the last 300,000 years, it's 83 cycles. So that would be 3 times that amount to have 1 million years.
Okay, Samuel, we're coming up on the last 12 minutes of the show. I want to mention to everybody that TalkShoe is changing their call-in number. Truthbug, if you could post some phone numbers for me again, I'd really appreciate it. And so I don't know when I send out the reminders if the new call-in number will be on there or not. But if you try to call in and that number don't work anymore, go to the page and look up the new number, and I'll get that out to you, Robert, because this 1724 number is not going to be working anymore.
Okay.
So I want to let everybody know that. Samuel, why don't you, give out information about your sites and how to get a hold of you if anyone wants to get in contact with you?
Well, I'm usually on Facebook on Montana Skywatcher 1 and 2. If you'd like to join 2 because 1 is a closed site and we ran that. And I usually try to keep older members on that, the ones who don't like as much gossip and will complain to me. It's a little quieter on 1. We ran that for the longest time with closed information because we wanted to make sure we knew what we were talking about before we went public. And then when we were totally sure, we tried to reach out to everybody. And then, of course, we got trolled to death from all the other wannabe sites with Nibiru this and Nibiru that. And I feel sorry for you folks. And if you guys want the real information, of course, come to our site because we, all the providers from around the world are citizen scientist reporters, and we don't get paid, so we don't get corrected by money, and we culminate the information, and we've been watching it long enough we know what the hell we're talking about instead of a few of those other sites that just want your money, and the boys that are all running around YouTube, with egos and some twisted ideas about a fake sun, which there isn't one. There is no fake sun. And if you believe that, then you don't need my information, and have a nice life, and we'll see you when you run into trouble. But anyway, get a hold of us at Montana Skywatchers and or my YouTube page, Sam Hofman or Samuel, U-E-L, S-A-M-U-E-L, Hofman, H-O-F-M-A-N on YouTube. And, of course, we'll go from there. I don't need any phone calls currently because my answering machine is dying, like so many of my other electronics. But
okay,
I'm around. We're around.
Samuel, Truthbug would like to get your address and send you a donation.
Okay, P.O. Box 625, Lolo, that's L-O-L-O, Montana, M-O-N-T-A-N-A, 59847. And even a handwritten personal check or money order is fine because I just drop it in the account, and I have a bank account, and they deal with it. And there's a PayPal account out there, but I appreciate anything anybody can do because I'm constantly replacing computer equipment, and it's cost me a fortune so far. I'm on my 13th computer, and my kids have got to eat, and I don't make a lot of money, so anything you can do is wonderful because, God, I sure need it. Anyhow, I want everybody to know that we're going to have some extreme weather, especially from Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado on. And then who knows what's going to happen to California in the next couple of months because these passing planets and the asteroids are transitory. We're going through cycles. We've seen it over and over again, and it's spooky this time. I'm seeing some electrical storms I've never seen before. It's so awesome, and it's so scary at the same time. So everybody out there best seriously take care because this is in for a wild ride, and it's coming. I mean it. It's coming. So go ahead.
Well, you know what? We burned through another 2 hours again. Thank you, Truthbug, for posting the numbers, and Huggy for your questions, and everybody that's joined us. I really appreciate you tuning in. I hope we've been enlightening you with some great information. And, again, we will have Samuel back next month if we're still here.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
There you go. I'm knocking. Get that extra rice.
Robert, I love you, and you're in my prayers, you and Mom.
Robert, I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's just, again, it's a time thing now. That's all it really boils down to. And just, watching her, it's a slow process. That's all I can say.
Yeah, both of my parents have passed over a few years ago now, and it gets easier with time and everything. I'm not hoping that occurs or anything, but it's part of the cycle, and in some cases, those folks might not want to be around for some of this crazy stuff anyway. Who wants to sit in the heat without power?
Sure.
Not me.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Well,
so
anyway, we're all spirits. We know what we're doing.
We've really gotten some great information. And, I want to throw this out there real quick. Since you said we're going to be going through some extreme weather, how about if we put on call if everything starts going haywire? I get a hold of you and we just throw out there a unscheduled show. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's always possible. Call me anytime you need. My machine mostly works. Every once in a while I'll play back a message and it's starting to garble out, but I have trouble with electronics. So call me anytime.
Everybody in the window, keep that. Make sure you log in as a member and follow me, because if I do an unscheduled show, I will send out the reminder through the email. So if you go and follow me, you will get an email knowing that we're doing an unscheduled show.
Right, and if anybody wants to join Skywatcher 2, then do so, and you can send us your daily pictures, and then I'll evaluate them as best as I can. I don't have a great deal of time to spend on there because everybody keeps me very busy, and I spend a lot of time on the computer as it is, and then, of course, I got kids to raise. But you can also get, send us your information so that we can, culminate this information so we know if it's an emergency or not.
Okay, you guys, so we will be back out here in 2 weeks. I'm not sure who we're going to invite for a guest. I'll have to just post it up there after I decide what I'm going to do. But then again, the second week of the month, the second show we do of the month, we always have Samuel come on. So you're just going to have to follow me. Go ahead and, follow me on TalkShoe, and if we do an unscheduled show, we'll let you know. And I want to thank you all again for joining me, and I hope that you get some donations going there, Samuel.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah,
everybody, watch out for this weather. It's going to be nasty.
Wait 1 minute. We got a caller that called in at the last minute. Let's see.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get him unmuted. Okay. Would you like to make a comment real quick before we log out of here?
Yes, I will. This is Robin, Waterford, Michigan, and I just thought I'd try that phone number. I was not able to enter my call ID, so I went back to the 724-444 number and did all that, so it works. Anyway, hi to everybody, and let you guys go.
All right, you guys have a good evening.
Thank you, Robert.
What I heard, Rob, was that it was supposed to be in effect today, but they pushed it back till Monday.
Right.
So I want you to have both numbers in case one doesn't work. You use the other one. If the new one doesn't work, then try the old one.
Okay. That's great. All right. Enjoy, and thank you very much. Okay. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Take care, Rob. Samuel, you take care.
All right. I'm going to hang up now. Good night.
All right. Me too.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. Great show. I love you all. And
love you
looking
too.
forward to having everybody come back in 2 weeks. I will send out my my reminders, and like I said, I don't know who I'm going to have, but I always have great people. And
yes,
you all have a blessed weekend.